Hi, I'm Jessica Kleine. I'm a money and mindset coach. I work with numbers and the number side of things with budgeting and bookkeeping and things like that. But my passion is in the mindset. My passion is in the energy of money, the frequency of money, the spirituality of money, and the whole world of abundance. So while I do some of the numbers, my focus is really helping women to spend better, not less, with everything they're doing and change the way that they see their money. If you can start to see your money differently, you start to spend your money differently, and you can start to grow your money differently. Tonight I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the lies that you might be believing that you don't even realize you have. Now, actually I have a quote to start with. It's actually from Amanda Frances, which is the book that's over there at the Ambition to Success table. It says, the only thing that makes a thought true is our belief in it. And that's what I want you to remember as we're going through this. Now, before we get started, you need to know there's two different parts of your mind. A lot of you already know this, but there's your conscious mind and there's your subconscious mind. The conscious mind, that's the thoughts that you can actually hear in your brain. That's the ones you can direct, the ones you can control, the ones that say, I'm going to stick to my budget this year. I'm going to talk to Marissa so that I can get in front of all of these people at WESOS to get over my fear of speaking. That's a conscious thought that you're trying to make something happen with. Now your subconscious thoughts, your subconscious mind, that's a little deeper. Those are the thoughts you don't necessarily hear, but those are the thoughts that are driving most of your actions, whether you know it or not. Now, if these two were both playing fair and equally, and partners going on in your mind, that wouldn't be too big of a problem. Might be a power struggle, but for the most part, it would be pretty even. However, lots of researchers, scientists, really smart people say only about 5%-ish of our mind is our conscious mind. So when we're trying to make decisions, when we're trying to do things, when we're trying to take actions, we only have 5% of those conscious thoughts working in our favor. The other 95% tend to hold us back if we're not careful. Now, I'm a visual person. Also, if I'm talking too fast, raise your hand, because I get excited when I talk about this. I'm a visual person, so if I'm thinking 5%, 95%, yes, I do numbers, but that doesn't really help me see what's going on. So if you were to try and visualize this, imagine you have 5 racing horses. They're strong, they're powerful, they are running for your goals. Those are your conscious thoughts. Those 5 horses are running in the direction you want them to go because you're telling them to go there. Unfortunately, they are tied to 95 other strong racing horses that are perfectly content staying right where they are. They want to keep you safe. Their whole job is to try and conserve energy, get away from pain, get into pleasure, and stay safe. So when you're consciously trying to think of your goals and you're consciously trying to think of your actions, you only have 5 of those horses on your side. The other 95 are kind of just staying put. Now those 95 horses, or those thoughts and those beliefs, those were programmed into our subconscious when we were kids. It's been carried on for generations and generations and passed down. So when we get to this point of trying to figure out what they're saying and what they're kind of holding us to, we have to think way back. And most of the time, we don't really go that far back when we're thinking. We're working in the right now, and especially with money thoughts, those were programmed way back when we were kids, before you had the understanding that you have now as an adult. So a lot of things around money and around building a business, lots of the fears that we have that we don't realize, those were programmed back a really long time ago, and they're keeping us stuck. So here's some examples of some of these lies that maybe you've been told when you were a kid that sounded like a good idea at the time, but they're holding you back in ways that you don't even realize. One of the first ones is when you think about money, when you think about rich people or wealthy people. A lot of times people get like a Scrooge McDuck kind of picture in your head. You picture this old guy counting his money, wearing a suit, real grumpy, real mean, kind of selfish. That's a mind picture that a lot of kids grow up with because of the stories we hear and the movies we watch and the things that we see happen around us. When we start thinking of money and wealth and richness, and we associate it with greed or the bad guys in a story or something like that, that's going to obviously start holding you back a little bit. Your brain likes to generalize information. Again, we're trying to keep it simple. Your brain wants things to be nice and easy. So when you're small, if you start seeing a character who's a bad guy who's rich, and then you have an uncle who never buys Christmas presents even though he's rich, you start gathering this information that goes into your head that says, well, all rich people then must be greedy. They must be selfish. They must be mean because I know these couple of people that are. They fit that example for you. Now, because your brain also has a filter system, it likes to pay attention to the things that it believes. So when you start believing rich people are greedy and rich people are selfish, your brain is going to start targeting, finding, and zoning in on more examples in the movies that you watch now as an adult. There's movies with CEOs that are crooked and steal money from people. You know, when you start thinking about the rich people are into drugs, or they're into this, or they're into that, there's money issues going on. It all has to do with that belief that you had in your brain when you were a kid that rich people are greedy. Now, if that's one of the underlying thoughts that you have, and your subconscious job is to protect you, there's no way your subconscious is going to let you do something to start to accumulate more money. Because if you start accumulating more money, you're suddenly going to start acting greedy or selfish or mean, because that's what your subconscious believes, because you've associated the two together. You might even have a thought that when you have your kids, you know, you have spoiled rich kids is a phrase that people are used to. Again, your subconscious is going to hold you back from doing things to grow your own wealth if you have that belief that's deep down in there. You might not consciously have that belief, but if that's something that was kind of put into you when you were a kid, that's going to be stuck with you when you're an adult. Now another one, oh man, my notes are in order that way. Another phrase that kind of stuck with me for a long time is money is the root of all evil. A lot of us kind of grew up hearing that. A lot of you, if you're different kind of faiths, all that kind of stuff. Money is evil. Money is bad. Money is wrong. Again, the bad guys are the ones with the money. I've been on a journey to try and fix my relationship with money for a very long time. And one of the ways to build a relationship is having to love things, built on trust, respect, and love. When I first tried on the thought that I love money, I was like flooded with shaming and judgy and all that kind of different kinds of thoughts in my brain because of the upbringing that loving money is wrong. If you love money, that means you're evil. It's kind of the way that was taught growing up. Now, the funny thing is that's a quote that's misquoted all the time. It doesn't say loving money, or it doesn't say money is evil. It says the love of money is evil. But after doing some research, that's not accurate either. The English language is a funny language. There's one word, love, but there's lots of different kinds of love. So I can love my husband, but I also can love tacos. There's lots of different ways that you can feel the different kinds of love. The word love in that particular verse, where this all comes from, is actually translated as avarice, which I also didn't know what that meant, so I had to Google it. Avarice is actually an extreme greed. So when you put an accurate translation to the words that are being used, you learn that extreme greed is the root of all evil, not the love of money, okay? So once you can start looking into some of these different kind of beliefs and really digging into them, you can start to see how they might be affecting you in very, very subtle little ways. Giving is better than receiving. That's another one that a lot of people say. I do agree with this to a point. The problem is when we get to that issue of giving is good and receiving is bad, which a lot of times we get to do two different extremes. You need to have both in order to be able to let that abundance flow through you. And women in particular are really bad at receiving things. We don't feel like we're worthy. We don't feel like we're good enough. Whether it's compliments, whether it's a gift, whether it's working with clients and you feel bad receiving payments from clients and from customers. That all stems from a belief that giving is better than receiving, which our brain then translates to giving is good and receiving is bad. Now, you want to be able to give and receive to keep that flow going, and also to remember that when you're receiving, you're allowing the other person to do the giving and get that kind of joy then for them. Huh. Sorry, my notes are all a little crazy here on 2 pages. All right, so here's a handful of them that are kind of cliche, but they were cracking me up when I was thinking it through and kind of picking them apart. Money doesn't grow on trees. Have you heard that? Most of us did when we were kids. Now, my daughter will argue, well, there's some paper in it, so actually, but money doesn't grow on trees is something we hear as kids, and we don't really think anything of it, because consciously, that's not really a thought that we worry, oh yeah, haha, money doesn't grow on trees. But if this was programmed into you when you were a kid, that is telling you that money is scarce. You have that thought and that belief that money doesn't grow on trees, so that means it's going to run out. That means it's going to be hard to come by. That means it's going to be hard to make. If you have that deep down in your subconscious, This belief is going to keep you from taking advantage of too good to be true type scenarios, or ways where it could be giving you easy money. You know, if you have certain clients that are an easy yes, if you feel like it's too easy to get that money, you're going to put up blocks to keep you from having it. It's going to keep you from different opportunities where your subconscious thinks it's too risky. You're going to invest less, because if money doesn't grow on trees and this investment doesn't work, suddenly now you're out of money. Slow and steady wins the race. It's another one. I went back to childhood for all of these. So we have a tortoise and a hare. Slow and steady wins the race. That sounds like a good belief. That takes us back in money and in other areas of our life, because we're told patience and consistency are the keys to success. Again, most people won't disagree, but then there's another phrase out there that says money loves speed. And there's even more things out there having to do with momentum and building momentum and kind of going with the momentum. So slow and steady might be a solid belief, but that's going to hold you back from making quick decisions in your business. You're going to have a hard time getting out of your comfort zone if you're stuck in slow and steady. You're going to be stuck in overanalyzing and overthinking and not wanting to make changes that maybe would be beneficial to you if you're in this slow and steady kind of a belief. And a side note with that, if we think there's a race, slow and steady wins the race, we also have that triggering in our head now. There is no race. If there was a race, that means there's a winner and there's a loser. And again, as women, we don't want there to be losers, so we're not going to want to do anything to go against that thought and that belief in our head. If there's a race, that means there's also some kind of a set path or some kind of a set timeline that we're supposed to be following. So again, some of these beliefs that seem very innocent that we had as kids could really be holding you back in your businesses. It takes money to make money. That's another one. Especially hard for women, because historically women were not the ones that had the money. We couldn't have the money. We couldn't be responsible for money. We couldn't earn our own money. So if you have that thought somewhere in there of it takes money to make money, that's going to stop a lot of women in their tracks, and they won't even get started. They will find ways to sabotage themselves. They will find ways to stop themselves from taking any kind of action, because that's a belief that's holding them back. It's one of those 95 horses holding them back from doing what they want to do. Last one that I'm going to talk about. It takes hard work to make money, or hard work pays off. Now, these two are very related, and it's fascinating to me because they affect people very differently depending on how you see the terms hard work. This one gets passed on from generation to generation. So let's put it this way. If you imagine hard work and you feel like that would be struggle, that's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of hustle culture kind of stuff. If that's the way that you look at hard work, your subconscious is going to find ways to protect you by not letting you move forward on opportunities in order to save you from having to suffer from hard work. So you're going to be stuck, and you're not going to move forward because you're afraid of hard work. Now, if you think of it the other way, which a lot of people think of hard work as a sense of pride, and there's a value to hard work, in that case, your subconscious is going to keep you in a cycle of hustle and make you have to keep working and working and working until you get to burnout in order to earn the rewards that you get from working hard. So there's lots and lots of different ways that some of these beliefs are very subtle, but they can affect you in all sorts of different areas in your money, in your life, and in your business once you start to really be aware of them. Now, none of these beliefs are good or bad. There's not anything good or bad about them. They're just kind of there. It all depends on how you perceive them, but that's kind of the point. All these beliefs have been programmed into our subconscious as truth, but they're just ideas that we were exposed to as kids, and then we kept being exposed to them, kept thinking about them until they became our truth, just something that we believe. And these truths can be blocking us from that flow of abundance that's available and all the dreams that you have for yourself. But how do you change them? Now, the first step is just to be aware of them. Once you know that those beliefs are in there, it's a lot easier to take control and to do the work to change them. Journaling is a great way to do it. If you try and just ruminate it over in your head, you won't see them because they're hiding. They've been there forever, and they like to stay hidden. So when you can journal them out and you can read back your words, you can see your beliefs a little bit easier that way. Once you're aware of them, then you can start taking actions to change them. Now, even usually in this room, you can go through hypnosis. There's tapping. There's different kinds of energy healing and energy modalities and things that work at the subconscious level. Coaching is also a way to help. When you can talk it out with a coach, the coach knows what you're saying might not be what actually is going on those deeper levels, and they can bring out the right kind of questions to get you to think, are these beliefs really what you want, or is this just something you've been trained to think? Now, once you have these beliefs journaled out and you start seeing all the different words and all the different ways of thinking that might be keeping you back, there's 3 different tips I can give you besides obviously going deeper with hypnosis and things like that. You could redirect and reframe those thoughts. So money is evil, okay, how about money is good instead? If you can't believe that, just make it neutral. Money is neutral. Money is a tool. Okay, you want to reframe and redirect your thoughts to something that's more believable, that feels better. The whole purpose of these, you need to be able to be repetitive with these to reprogram your thoughts, and you want to get the feeling and the emotion behind it, because that's what's going to start tapping into that subconscious level. You can also use the magic word yet. So let's say you have a personal belief that I'm not good with money. I'm not good at saving. I'm too spendy. I'm not good at building my business. I'm not, outgoing enough to meet new people. Add the word yet at the end of that. When you add the word yet, it's something magical happens and it opens up your brain to possibility. So I'm not good with money yet, as opposed to I'm not good with money. Okay, you don't want to keep that door shut. You want to use the magic word to keep it open so your brain can start finding solutions. You also want to use the word and, not or. So giving and receiving. You want to be able to do both. Both are good. I can be a stay-at-home mom and I can run a successful business. There's no or involved. A lot of beliefs that we women have, we tend to think of them as very black and white. It's one or the other. You can have and at all. That's what we want. And then finally, find the opposite. This is really helpful for me because once you can find the opposite of a belief, it starts poking holes in that belief. And once you can poke holes in that belief, then you can start to change it. So if you have that belief that wealthy people are greedy, find examples of people that are using their money for good, that are being generous. So you can start to change your belief by finding examples of things that don't match that belief. It kind of short-circuits your brain a little bit and gives you some breathing space then. And that is all. Are there any questions? To change your brain? It really depends on how deep it is and if you're willing to go deeper, like with hypnosis and stuff. I'm a big fan of combining lots of different methods. For me, I've been working on my money forever, and new layers will still pop up. So as you're working, it's not a race, there's no end game, there's not a destination. You just have to start learning how to adjust it and reframe it as it comes up, and it just gets easier and easier and easier. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you very much, everybody. You guys were great.